Hello, Sue Ricks from SueRicks.com, talking about dementia. And this is as a result of speaking to a lovely friend of mine, and I thought it'd be really nice to share it. It's a difficult subject, isn't it? It's really tough to talk about dementia or Alzheimer's. And I am speaking from a personal point of view. My father had dementia and Alzheimer's, and I learned so much from being with him. He taught me so much by witnessing his journey. And a very good friend of mine, her husband has just passed, and we've talked about the same thing, which she and I both said, you know, if you're looking on the outside looking in, you know, maybe it would seem very strange what I'm about to talk about. Maybe you're already with me on this one. Maybe this is a little bit new. So in talking about, so Alzheimer's is a form of dementia. And when we're visiting people, or we know people who are visiting people who've got Alzheimer's and dementia, it's just such a difficult thing to do. It's such a journey because, you know, their reality is a different reality maybe to yours or the person who's visiting. And I'm hoping that this is going to be an upbeat video about a non-upbeat subject, because it is the most difficult. And having visited and, you know, gone to see my father many times a week for many years, this is something that I absolutely know. And his life and his living and my friend's husband, you know, this is a message forward, which is that when we go to visit, we take in our world. However, they're in their world. And it's important for us to use our mental faculties, which, you know, hopefully we've still got, to join them in their world and not challenge that world. So if, you know, they say that something's happened, we can say, you know, the necessary, you know, oh really, or tell me more, or what did that feel like, or how often does that happen, or what did you wear, or whatever. I mean, I remember Dad saying once that he went to have tea with the Queen. And we talked about, you know, and he told me about the cups that he had and how you could see through the cups and how polite she was. And honestly, I just think it was just amazing. There was another time when I visited him and he talked about being very curious. We were actually having a Sunday roast, and all of a sudden he was like looking really, really intently. And I went, what can you see, Dad? Because obviously, you know, I'm in the little private dining room having a meal with him. He can clearly see something entirely different, and he could see some animals loading onto a cruise ship. And at one point, so he said the pandas had gone on, and then he went, how are they going to get the giraffes on? And I went, well, they probably just asked them to put their heads down. And he went, oh yes. So, you know, whatever it is, if we're lucky enough that they're having a nice experience. Another time I went to see Dad, and he was talking about how this morning he'd had a difficult time getting the caravan into the garage to get it serviced, and how I'd had to be really careful not to scratch the other cars. So we talked about caravanning. So my message really is join people where they are. And if they say that something's happened or is happening, then join them with it. And it could be, I mean, you know, Dad started calling me his sister, I think, at one point. And I just said, well, you've been a lovely brother. I love you as a brother. And it was my dad. There's lots of different ways that you can join them. And also you can, I noticed, this is something we were talking about yesterday, that, you know, a lot of people spend a lot of time sleeping. And maybe sleep is such a blessed relief from the confusion of this weird earthly place that they're still here on. And if they are asleep, they're like in the other world. They're like in that sort of transition space that we go into when we're in a really deep sleep to be able to recharge. So if somebody's asleep and you go to visit, or maybe one of your clients has a relative who's got a relative who's at home or in a home or a facility, then you can just suggest, maybe, this is what I found the absolute best is, let them know that you're there by, maybe gently place your hand on their hand, or, just whisper to them and just touch their shoulder very gently so that you don't shock them into being here on planet Earth and it's like, oh, what was that? Just calmly and even if it's just that sort of very light touch that you do, just to let them know that you're there. And then what I call leave them in the other world while they're asleep. I would spend a long time, many hours, when Dad was asleep, and I'd just got my hand on him, and I would meditate and think and reminisce and plan and just be in a nice space. I really concentrate and focus on being in a good place in myself, because my sense was that he was really aware of my energy. And in talking with my friend yesterday, whose husband has just passed, she said the same, that the more she learned to just be very just quiet and soft and, what I call in and down in herself, and loving of herself, very important, and loving of him, and actually loving of the care staff who've been amazing in caring for him, and knowing people by name. That's so important when you go to visit people, knowing the carers' names, knowing something about them, paying an interest in about them as people so that they treat your loved one as a person, and letting them spend time. So another relative of mine would go to visit Dad, would pop in and say hi, and they'd gone to a lot of effort to be there. So they would go in and call his name and how are you, and call his name again. And it's like sort of calling him out of the other world. And they would go, I don't know how you cope going, Sue, all the time, because he's just so distressed when I go. And actually Dad wasn't very distressed when I was there. And I just hope that just being just very quiet, very calm, very grateful, very loving on that love highway is a nice energy to be around. And while they're asleep and they're in the other world, then that's the nice place. And eventually, these sleep periods will become longer, and eventually, hopefully, their passing will be peaceful into the other world. And so when you're supporting anybody who is coping with a loved one who's got dementia, who's got Alzheimer's, and they're struggling, spend some time before you go into that facility or into their home or wherever it is, or maybe they're sharing your home, right? And it's just really, if you possibly can, be as kind to yourself and suggest that they, whoever's visiting that person, just spends that little bit of time. Remember, energy follows thought, and remember, getting down into your pelvis, squeeze your bum, and getting into remember the bowl technique. And if you're new to this, please look it up on the Academy. Yeah, or maybe it's the pendulum technique, or maybe it's the vortex, or whatever it is of the techniques. Remembering, look up energy follows thought, look up 3 steps to enjoying life here on the Academy, just so that you can be just in that nice, I'm so happy, and I'm so lucky. Or it might be you're so distressed because the person is really struggling, and then you have to remember once when Dad was really struggling one day, and I had to proper pull myself in and pull myself down and withdraw from the whole thing and get deeply deep inside myself, and then go, I'm witnessing somebody's life journey here. This is such an honour to witness, and I remember why I love me, and I remember why I love you, and I remember some loving times, and I'm going to look around the room and look at whatever it is that you can see that you like, and focus on that to stay on the love highway, and really stay on the love highway and keep that energy open. So when you are, or you're supporting somebody who's visiting somebody who has Alzheimer's or has dementia, just remember to stay in, quiet, loving, let them be where they are and witness and honour their journey and say yes to everything. So if, whatever it is that they say, yeah, it's like, it might be, can we go home tomorrow? And that, that actually that's not a practical possibility. So you can say, yes, I'll go and make some arrangements. I'll go and talk to somebody and see what's possible. It's not a lie. Yeah, you can't lie, but you can go and say, yes, I'll go and see what's possible, knowing that if you went to talk to somebody, it wouldn't be possible for them to come home. Or it might be possible to say, I'll just find out what the situation is here. Or, oh, I'm not sure where I put the key, I'll go and have a look for it. My sister had a great thing when it was time to go. She would go, I'm just going to take the dog for a walk. And by the time she'd gone to take the dog for a walk, he'd completely forgotten that she'd even been there. So she'd go in with her dog. Everybody loved seeing her dog. Her dog was allowed into the facility. And she would say, I'm just going to take the dog for a walk. And then he'd forgotten that she'd even been there. So there are some nice things about it. I've got some really lovely, lovely memories of Dad. I remember one time, I think it possibly the last time I got a photograph of Dad, he was sitting in his chair smiling. He was holding a glass of port in one hand and a finger of shortbread in the other hand. And I'd taken a friend of mine who he knew, and it's just a picture of everybody with big smiles on their faces. So, if you're lucky enough to be able to enjoy good times, enjoy the good times. If it's bad times, really focus inside yourself on self-love and self-care and letting them be where they are. It's a condition, it's a disease, it's a dis-ease. And just witness and honour that their journey is happening. And if they're asleep, just leave them there. So lots of love to you, to anybody who's dealing with this situation. I hope that helps you or anybody you know that you are supporting in this soul journey. Lots of love from Sue. Bye bye.